What was it about this story that made you want to come on board?
Sure. So Adjika Owens was a family friend. She's the young woman who was murdered in the film, and she was murdered in June of 2023. And when it happened, we got a distress call from my sister-in-law, who was her best friend. And myself, my team at Message Pictures, we sprang into action to try to support the family and to get media coverage around the case. And then about 2 months later, we received the body camera footage from the attorneys, the family attorneys who were working on the case. And they asked us to go through it to see if there was anything for the media or anything that would be useful. And that's when I realized I could make a film, because there was about 2 years worth of footage that went back and led up to the crime, and you never see anything like that. You do not see, after a terrible crime occurs, what the community was like before. You only often see the aftermath. So.
One of the things I love about the film is it focused a lot on the victims, where you could have focused on the perpetrator a lot more because the body cam footage was a lot more prevalent. What was your balance like, making sure the victims' voices were more told instead of going with the perpetrator?
I think we wanted very much to focus on the perspective of the community, even though the footage is police body camera footage. Again, the police unintentionally caught the community as they were. Again, at play, just sort of you saw children in the streets, you saw this idyllic community, sort of the best of us, and then you also see the worst of us. And I think that this film really holds a microcosm up to our society. It's the intersection of weaponized racism, of manufactured fear, and of dangerous laws, like predatory laws, like Stand Your Ground, and how that leads to people being emboldened, like Susan was, to commit terrible crimes. And we're hoping that, again, by making something that plays like a scripted thriller, that we can engage audiences without, again, beating them over the head with an issue, and then leave them to make decisions on their own about what should be done, but hopefully a call to action.
But it must have been a lot challenging editing, because there was probably a ton of footage, so was a lot just had to get left off that you wanted?
It was a lot of footage, and it's not footage that was shot to be a film. It was never meant to be a film. So it was a tremendous amount of technical and editorial work. It looked seamless. It was, ask my editor. She was like, oh my God. Viridiana Lieberman, she's a genius. Took a lot of work to make it feel like something, again, that's of a piece.
Now, the reception of the film has been wonderful, and I'm so glad it's getting out there. How do you feel now that the reception of the film is actually beginning to question the Stand Your Ground law, which seemed to have been ignored for a while? People forgot about it. How do you feel now that it's now coming right back to the conversation?
I'm thrilled. It's what we meant to do. It's in 38 states in some shape, form, or fashion. And if we can get dangerous laws like this repealed state by state, that would be the ultimate goal.
So what was it about this story that made you want to tell it?
So I was born and raised in Iran, Tehran, and I grew up witnessing so many women like our lead participant, Sara, who are fighting for their independence. And then I moved to the United States at a young age, and now having lived equally between the two worlds, I see a lot of the topics that are explored in Cutting Through Rocks, mainly the gender injustice, is a shared concern, especially when it comes to the way in which women's body becomes a battleground. And so with that in mind, I also wanted to see how about the women who never left their home country? How are they shifting the dynamics there? So through extensive research, I came across this tenacious individual, and then as I learned that she's running for a council seat, I contacted Mohammadreza, Eyni, who I had worked with in the past, and I said, let's go to this village together.
Yeah, and thank you for calling me. So the title of our film is Cutting Through Rocks, and it's about a woman who fights against traditions, and she wants to give voice to other women and also empowering her community. So, of course, it was really amazing story for me as someone who's coming from the community, and then spending 8 years. We spent 8 years making this film. Was enough time to see how Sara, our main character, is offering the change and how she's fighting against so many different things.
One of the challenges, you return every year you return every year. Were you ever scared that you wouldn't be able to finish the film because you wouldn't be able to they wouldn't let you back?
Yeah, so we actually were, we had like a total of 8 shooting trips, and every time we stayed a long time. But every time we were wondering like if we would ever finish the film. You know, we were questioned, and of course it wasn't it was a risk-taking journey. It wasn't an easy journey at all.
Now, gender does play a big part of it. Did they treat you two differently in the village?
Yes and no, because in some ways the way that also plays in the fact that we, as a duo collaborators, I was able to connect to the women communities in a very intimate way that Mohammadreza maybe in the very beginning couldn't, and then vice versa. Like there was no way for me to connect to the men communities, and so this duality is also like played in. Also, the fact that we spent so much time together, we ended up getting married as we were
Even
making
better.
the film. Even better. So then everybody knew us as a couple with a camera.
So this was a very smart question to ask. Actually, I can say our film is about inequality. But we as filmmakers behind the camera decided to have equality while working on this project and respect each other's opinion. And I'm sure that, because it's observational filmmaking, it's a documentary film, it was also a chance for people of the village to see that, it's possible, it could be practicing. Because those women and those teenage girls in our film are amazing, and they need a little bit more space. And we have so amazing women in Iran, like Sara as a filmmaker here, and I've learned a lot from her. So, of course, we need to respect what they are doing, and we need to learn from them.
What I'm so glad about the nomination is it's getting noticed in America right now, which is how do you feel the reception's been here? Who a lot of people don't in this country understand what's going on over there.
Yeah, so we are extremely honored for this recognition, first of all, as filmmakers, because this is a recognition from colleagues, and this is really amazing. But also, on the other hand, we are taking this really amazing news with lots of mixed emotions, because the mix of what is happening back home versus this amazing news is something that it's very heavy to experience, but at the same time, it gives us a lot of responsibility to talk about Iran and talk about how women like Sara Shahverdi is, with a lot of tenacity, with a lot of perseverance, they are the ones who are eventually creating a better future for all.
This is the first Iranian feature documentary ever being nominated for Oscar.
Yeah.
So I remember it was maybe 15 years ago, Iranian director Farhadi was nominated, and I didn't sleep to see that he's nominated as a cinema student.
Yeah.
This time, what happened for us was because of internet shutdown, nobody knew about our nomination.
Right.
And also, we didn't have access to them to share the news with them, but also we were so worried about our people regarding what was happening in the country. So we wanted to be happier with this recognition. So it makes it really complicated. But also, we are so humbled and proud for DGA nomination, because our colleagues, directors, recognize the craft and our directorial decisions, and it's really, really important for us, but also making it harder for us, more responsibility for other next project. But we promise to make good films.
So what was it about this story and this great story, Seymour, that made you want to come on board?
I mean, you said you've seen the film?
Yes.
It's Sai, right? It doesn't get any better than Sai Heard.
And for you, what attracted you most of the story?
Well, I very simply, I've known Seymour for a long, long time, and I have a lot of respect for him, and I think he's a fabulous character. Films are made about people, and the more character they have, the better for the filmmaker, and certainly Sai fits that bill. I also think that he's, at this time in this country, his message, if you will, his history, his work is extremely relevant and extremely important, and I think it's something we want people to be exposed to.
One challenge is you have a person who is slightly antagonistic sometimes, and willing to
No.
walk off the set any moment. What were your concerns about keeping him on set, trust built between you two?
I mean, Sara's a mensch. Like he can get angry, but then he calms down. So, it's we weren't that worried. It took him a while to agree, but once he agreed, he was in.
And you have to understand, we exhausted him too. We had interviewed and interviewed and interviewed, and people are allowed to have ups and down days, and he had one that day. But we were never in doubt that he was going to come back.
My last question is, what I liked about the film was the success is amazing career, but you also had made mistakes. How important was you capturing everything, the truth, in the film?
It was our job. Sai wouldn't respect us if we didn't ask him the hard questions, and people make mistakes, and you have misses. Like when you have a career that's 60 years, you're going to have some misses. And he didn't, those weren't his favorite days on the set, but he knew we had to ask.
Okay, so your episode's wonderful. What was your gut reaction when you first read the script?
Of 0 Day?
Your episode 6.
Oh, well, I directed all 6 hours.
Right.
So for me, I was very involved with the development of the whole story. So when I read that, it's where everything comes together and huge choices have to be made. So I always love characters being put in extraordinary circumstances where they're forced to deal with who they really are. And boy, Robert De Niro was put in that situation.
Well, you really paid off such wonderful things. You said I wanted to talk about that. What was it finally when the payoff for you finally when he addresses Congress? How did you approach shooting that? And working with Robert, of course.
Yes, of course, which was joyful. He is an extraordinary actor, of course, and a great collaborator. So that speech we had worked on a lot, and the turning points of where he makes those decisions, those were critical in the storytelling.
Now, you mentioned a lot of times the director doesn't get to direct all the episodes in a season, which is a dream. What were you most excited about paying off? Like something I really set up early on. I'm so glad I was able to pay this moment. Was there something?
There were so many things. That was the whole show of really setting up all of these different things to pay off. It's about the human condition. It's about a personal moral compass. Even though the world is very large, and it's about our government and our people and how we deal with crisis. And what is truth and what is opinion, since now we can't even agree on what is fact and what is fiction.
What initially attracted you to this project? Why Marty?
Well, for me, I was very interested in Marty's Catholicism and how whether it was possibly a key to a way to looking at his work that nobody had quite examined in a deep way. And so that interested me a lot.
One of the obstacles is he's been making movies a very long time. That means there's a lot of ground to cover. How did you decide what goes in and what goes out? Because, he's a prolific filmmaker.
Of course. We go through 32 films of his. It's not absolutely everything. The great Hugo is not included, but we did basically the film is a dance between the films and the life, and how the life makes the films and the films make the life. And so you're always watching these two things in concert, and that's really how we decided.
All right, so we go back to me. What was your gut reaction when you first read the script to your episode?
Oh, well, I had been told by Charlie, because I had worked with him before in the previous season of Black Mirror. I had done a dark comedy with him, and then he was like, it's going to be another dark comedy. And I was like, great. I signed on without a script. He's like, will you come do it? I was like, yeah. And then I got the script, and I was like, Charlie, this is so fucking sad. I was like, this is so devastating. And he was like, yeah, sorry, it got a little bit darker as I was writing it. So that was my first reaction, but I also, of course, thought it was just such a beautiful human story and very topical, unfortunately, right now.
So how did you wind up blending the comedy and the drama in this episode? Because they're both great.
Yeah, thank you. I feel like all of my work kind of is like a tonal tightrope or gray area. I really like doing stuff that exists in the middle. And this was no different. It's just, you have to take every opportunity from script to rehearsals to on-set to the edit to kind of recalibrate and just make sure that you're still in that wire zone and that you haven't fallen off one side or the other. So,
all right, so it could be logistic or dramatically. What was the most challenging scene to shoot?
Ooh, the most challenging scene to shoot was it's a spoiler, but the last scene when, of course, Chris O'Dowd's character has to kind of do the unthinkable. Both because it was very emotional for the actors and really heavy in the room, but also it was very technical in terms of not suffocating one of our actors. So that was just like one of those like interesting balances of a scene where you're like, you have to be there emotionally for your actors, but you also have to be, really in it with the stunt team, and yeah.
Is that a good recommendation for students? Because I have students watching, don't kill your actors?
Oh yeah, I would say try not to, at least on the first couple of things that you direct, yeah.
Yeah, once you're established like you can probably get away with it.
Oh yeah, no one would notice, yeah.
Okay, so what was your gut reaction when you first read the script of this episode?
How the hell are we going to pull this off in the amount of days with the amount of people we have? I directed 3 episodes of Andor. Episode 8 that I'm nominated for is, it's a huge battle sequence. It's a genocide of a full planet. The set was already being constructed in the backlot of Pinewood Studios in London. I remember walking onto that set with my first AD, Sean Guest, and my DOP, Mark Patton, and we looked at it and we thought, how are we going to fill this football stadium up and make it look like thousands of people when we have, on a good day, 400 extras? So that then we started, doing the maths and started to break it down, etc. But that was one side of it, and then the other part of it was just being so in awe of Dan Gilroy and Tony Gilroy's writing of those episodes. They're just beautiful writing. It doesn't get any better than that. So to be entrusted with those kind of scripts it's like having the biggest Christmas present.
Now, Star Wars, you mentioned the big epic battle, but you have to balance that with real trauma and real character, and obviously the genocide. How do you want to approach that, making sure that the battle didn't actually overshadow the actual drama going on?
Well, I think action and battle is nothing without rooting it in character. So it's all about the experience of the people that live through that moment. So we made sure to construct everything in that sequence around the subjective experiences of the characters that take us through it, and that's what delivers the emotional impact of it. In all sort of humbleness to the scripts that are great, and it's all in the script. I shot a documentary in Helmand, Afghanistan. I deployed with troops there back in 2010, a documentary called Armadillo. So I had a real life experience of what it meant to be in a war zone. And I used that very much in my way of approaching that material. And I wanted to give this sort of visceral experience that I felt personally and convey that in this episode of Andor.
During Comic-Con, I got to interview Brandon Roberts, your composer. What was like collaborating with him on that episode for the music?
Well, I wish I could say I'd had that experience when I was in editorial. Brandon was not yet on the project. He came in later. I've spoken to Brandon subsequently because we've kind of fallen in love with each other's work, and I think his composing, his music for the show just elevates it. It's such a beautiful job that he's done, and I have all the respect in the world for him. And I've gotten to know him since, and he's just a wonderful guy.
What was your emotional reaction when you first read the script?
When I first read the script, it really was the cliche of I laughed, I cried, it became a part of me. But it also, because my wife wrote it, I was, shall I say, I kind of had the inside track, and I knew what the story was, and I knew that it was going to be amazing.
The women actors are amazing in the film, the ensemble. What was the process collaborating with them, building their chemistry and setting them on set?
Well, I think when you work with like legendary actors, like Susan Sarandon, Lorraine Bracco, Talia Shire, Brenda Vaccaro, Linda Cardellini, you don't really need to do a lot to encourage. They know what they're doing so profoundly. Like I think the best scene in the movie is they're all sitting around a salon, kind of talking about their lives. Very simple but very elegant scene, and that was just me making sure the camera was in the right place to capture what they brought together. It was a remarkable experience.
And I also think Vince was wonderful balancing comedy and drama. Yeah. Like he's obviously we know he's a great comedic actor. Were you surprised how great he was at the drama part?
I oddly no, because I got to know him as a person, and that when I work with actors, like as impressed as I am by everyone's resume, I'm much more interested in them as people. And so when I make my movies, that's what I'm always trying to draw out as a director and encourage. So I wasn't surprised. I was inspired every day.
Question. All right. So one of the questions, this year's nominees, I felt these films were very amazing, but also a lot of different voices. Sinners is different than Hamnet. That's different than Mari Supreme. Did you feel like this year was a good example of how directors and voices are now getting more diversified and interesting?
I hope so. At least the ones that we're honoring are that way. Unfortunately, Hollywood's also making a lot of the same stuff. But if you look at those 5 films, they're not only unique voices, but they are more original than we've had in a long time, I think. Each one is, a lot of them are stories that were, brought to the fore just by the inventiveness of the filmmaker themselves. I think all 5 of the nominated films for the DGA Awards, the directors also wrote them, or at least co-wrote them, which just shows that there's a singular voice creating a singular vision that can't be denied.
I mean, some of the nominees that are not here, it was just an accident, Secret Agent, Sentimental Value. There's a lot of great international films that are also getting seen now in America. Are you hoping now that international director voices are going to get heard?
I'm hoping they are. Some of those are very good films, but I think the DGA also looks a lot in America, just like with production. We're really focused on how we can bring jobs back to America. So there may have been more of an emphasis on American films in this current environment.
And a final question. We have a lot of students, as you know, for the years. Now that there's so many different streaming, TV, feature, what do you suggest the directors focus on when they're in school? How do you think they should be preparing, or not worry about what they're getting into, just make something?
Yeah, I've been telling them, and I've told the students at UCSB, for me the most important thing is that you just start making films. Yes, you should watch everything that you can, certainly some of the historical films that a lot of people are ignoring now, some of the French New Wave and some of Robert Altman, and just to get all those different ways of telling a story, but you should just be making a movie. There is no excuse. It used to be, a camera, the film, it'll cost me money, I have to develop it. You don't have that anymore. You have a computer, you have a phone, get busy. So telling interesting short stories originally is what I would, and tell as many as you can. It takes a lot of practice to become really great. So do it a lot. Do it on the weekend, do it with your friends, and show it to your friends and make it better each time.